Okay, everyone, I have 8 o'clock on my watch, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank you again for joining us tonight for Saving Gate, What Parents Can Do. As always, this session is being recorded, and that recording will be available within 24 hours. For those of you who registered officially for tonight's event through our extension page, you will automatically receive a copy of the recording via email with instructions for accessing it. We will also be posting a copy of the recording in our free online GATE community, which I will talk a little bit about later. Okay, and I think my slides are moving, but I'm not sure.
They're going forward, Angela.
There's nothing on my screen.
I have you at Program Outline.
Okay, thank you, Teri. As I said, my name is Amanda Angelmo, and I'm a program planner with the Education Programs Department of UC Irvine Extension. On behalf of my director, Angela Jante, I would like to welcome you again to tonight's program. As you can see on your screen, here is a brief outline of what we hope to cover in the next hour. I will first cover a few basic functions of the WIMBA platform that we are using tonight, and then I will turn it over to Teri Burns, who is the Director of Legislative Advocacy for School Innovations Advocacy. She's our feature speaker this evening, and after her presentation, we will have a brief Q&A session with her, and then leave you with some contact information. Okay, let's quickly review a few important WIMBA features for those of you who are not familiar with this online conferencing tool. I would first like to direct your attention to the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. This chat feature allows you to communicate with other participants in this webinar. More importantly, you can use this feature to submit your questions during the Q&A portion of tonight's webinar. To do so, click on the drop-down menu next to the To field, and then select my screen name, A. Angelmo. You can then type your question in the space next to my name and press Enter to send that question to me. I also want to call your attention to a few troubleshooting features. Should you experience any audio problems during this webinar, click on the Options tab located at the top of the chat box. Select Disconnect Media and then Reconnect Media, and that should restart your audio connection and fix the problem. If you continue to have audio issues, you do have the option of connecting via telephone, but please note that standard long-distance rates may apply. Okay, without any further ado, I would like to present our featured speaker tonight, Teri Burns. After more than 16 years with the California State Senate, Ms. Burns served 6 years as the Deputy Superintendent for Governmental Affairs for the California Department of Education. In this role, Ms. Burns oversaw legislative and budget negotiations regarding education at both the state and federal levels. Ms. Burns currently serves as the Director for Legislative Advocacy for School Innovations Advocacy, coordinating activities at the state capitol on behalf of the California Association for the Gifted. She has also served as a member of the Board of Trustees of the Natomas Unified School District for more than 24 years. Teri, take it away.
Great, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. We're glad you're here. As the legislative advocate for the California Association for the Gifted, I'm very excited that some of you are thinking about stepping up and helping us out in our efforts to get gifted education back as a priority in our schools. With that, you'll bear with me a little bit if I'm learning this WIMBA system as well, I hope. We have 3 important goals today. The first, to learn the 3 I's of advocacy, that we want to be able to impact programs, We want to inform both the process and the participants, and we want to involve others in our efforts so that we can broaden the field of folks who are talking about gifted education. Your role in this process is really to put a face to that conversation. I can go up as much as I want and talk about the big picture of GATE on the state level, and we can come forth and talk about the big dollar amounts and the big data, all of those things. Your job is really to put that personal face on it, to tell them your stories, your personal experiences as a parent or as a teacher. Real kids are the things that make impressions on folks who are making decisions. You want to be able to make GATE an issue of local importance and build a support base for GATE locally. You really aren't alone in this process. The California Association for the Gifted has a statewide network. They have at their website resource materials for parents, for teachers, for community members. They have educational opportunities for parents and teachers, and a good communications network that can talk to you about what's going on at the state level, what's going on at the federal level, to keep you in the loop on things. When you want to go forth and talk locally, there are a number of talking point pages there and resource pages that you can use. For the national level, the National Association for the Gifted can put you in touch with what's going on in your state. In California, there are three things that affect GATE. First is the state budget. The state budget is the primary source for education funding and GATE's primary source of funding. We get really no federal money for this purpose. GATE is one of the categorical programs that's gone into something called categorical flexibility for 4 years until the year 12-13. All GATE funds go into the district's general fund and can be used for any purpose whatsoever, no longer targeted to services for gifted students. It'll be important to talk locally about prioritizing some of those funds to go back to serve the needs of gifted students. The second thing that involves GATE here is legislation. It created the GATE program, it regulates how GATE programs are operated, and it requires a district GATE plan. Requirements for that plan are also temporarily on hold due to categorical flexibility. So your district doesn't have to submit an annual GATE plan right now, again until 12-13. However, most districts had one in place prior to categorical flexibility, and that's a good document to work from. Also in regulation are the GATE standards. You can find those on the CAG website. Those are the standards that we're called to meet when we're operating GATE programs in this state. GATE is a voluntary program. No district has to operate it, but if they do, they're expected to meet certain standards. Finally, then, local budget and policy decisions impact what kind of GATE program, if any, is happening in your district. Local budget decisions are made, particularly in this time of flexible funding, to route funding to GATE programs or to other purposes. Your local level intervention is where those decisions will be made, both talking to your school board, talking to your school superintendent and administration, and then site level decisions that are made by your principal, talking about what resources we're going to use, how we're going to prioritize the activities of gifted students on our campus. There are a number of local level decision makers. First, primarily your elected school board members. You probably have 5 or 7 members on your board. All of them are elected by the local community. As such, they're responsive to local efforts to engage in the process. They're looking to you as constituents and do want to hear from you. Other folks involved in making decisions at the local level will involve your superintendent, your chief business officer, who helps write the budget and is going to be most interested in making sure that you're not overspending scarce resources on GATE. Your educational services staff, who talk most specifically about the educational program of the district. Those are the two distinct pieces. Your finance officer is going to talk about how the money's spent. Ed Services talks about what's going on academically. Other groups that are probably responsive in your district are parent-teacher associations. Your teachers' union will have some impact. Other local elected officials can have input. They may work with your local school board members, might be your mayor, might be your council members, might be your board of supervisors. All of those folks can influence your local school board. Of course, your Gifted Advocacy Association, depending on how active it is locally, can have a huge impact on what's going on with GATE programs in your district. So how do you talk to these folks? School board meetings are the perfect location to do that. All school board meetings are required to have a section for public comments. You may be limited to 1 or 2 minutes, maybe even 3, but do take the time to be sure someone is going up at each meeting to talk about GATE programs. I want to suggest to you that it's very helpful to talk about the successes of the GATE program, what's going on with particular GATE students, all before you're asking for something. It's much easier to be looking forward to seeing somebody who has positive comments, who isn't always asking for something, dollars, programs, resources. It's nice to just see you when you want to say thanks for doing something good. Have done that a few times, then you can come up and ask for resources for your program. Other opportunities during the school board meeting to make comments will be if there is a specific agenda item that deals with the GATE program or other intervention programs for students, might be an opportunity to talk. And then finally, when you're talking about the budget, it's perfectly appropriate to say, and what resources are we putting towards services for gifted students? There are other opportunities where your board members may not be, but your superintendent, your principals, and your other leadership of the district might be participating. Budget advisory committees, community presentations and community meetings, PTA meetings, site council meetings, all of those are very effective. District office appointments, you can make an appointment to meet with the head of school services, resource services. You can meet with a superintendent. Depending on how many of those folks are in your district office, set up an appointment with them. They're happy to talk to you. You can also set up a meeting and ask for a meeting with your school board members. Another good place to interface, a lot of school board members now are on Facebook and Twitter. Perfectly appropriate to get on those lists and find them there. You want to build a relationship with your board members and your
Teri?
Yes. You want to get to know your students. Say again? All right. You want to build a relationship with your board members and your superintendent. Each board member has something that's important to them, a reason that they got active on the board. Maybe your board member has a gifted student, and gifted issues are very important to that board member. Another one might be much more interested in athletics or in meeting the API or dropout prevention. Wherever the issue is, find out what issues are important to those board members. When you want to talk to them about issues that affect the GATE, that touch on the issues that are important to them, their priorities. How can you help them is an important piece of this. Also very important to get to know your superintendent, his or her interests and priorities, and never blindside them that you're going to be talking to board members. Let them know you're going to be raising these issues with board members so that they can be prepared. Request to be on newsletter lists, email lists, and Twitter lists. All of those things that you can get to be on will help get you information about those people. When they do help you, recognize them for their efforts. Thank them for putting resources to the Gifted program, coming out to see the Gifted program. Whatever it is that they've done, recognize them. You may even want to get involved in their campaigns. This is an election year, so half of your school board will likely be up. This is a time you can really get to talking to them and getting to know them, and they will appreciate your intervention on their behalf. If you set up a meeting with your board member, it doesn't hurt to take along a pal. But if you do, be sure and strategize about who's going to start the conversation. As with any elected official, they have limited time, and if you don't start the conversation, they will, and they may take it a completely different direction. You might find yourself with your 20 minutes spending about 17 of those minutes talking about their issues. So have a plan who's going to start the conversation, introduce your group, and then have some organized talking points. You want to be brief and to the point, and you want to have a clear ask from your conversation. You want the board member to go away knowing what it was you wanted. Don't just assume that you're all going to talk nice about GATE and then they're going to do what you want. Say, and I'm hoping that you will take this action. Be very clear about that. That way there's no mixed message and they can know that they really are helping you. It's helpful to have a one-page handout about your issue. Try not to make it more than one page. We're all busy folks. We don't have time for a lot of reading. What you want to do is offer to be a resource, get them additional information if they want it, but that one-pager will remind them what it is you wanted. Before your meeting with the board member, do your homework. Understand the opposing position. If you are asking for more money for gifted programs, understand that there are folks out there asking for more money for all of their programs, and we're in a situation now where school districts are being cut about 20% of their budget. So be aware that it isn't going to be as easy as simply giving you more resources. Ask for advice. After you've talked to them about what you want, ask for their suggestions on how you can go forth and get what you need. After your meeting, be sure and send a written thank you. I can't tell you how important it is. Board members rarely get thanks, and they will remember that for a long time. Also take the time, if you can, to share an updated quick email note to your CAG regional rep. Let them know what was accomplished, what was achieved. That can go in the newsletter. That can go out there to spur others on to take action locally. By doing your homework, there are places you can go to find out where the money's being spent. Your business office is a good place for that. How much did the district get for gifted education? How much of that got diverted to other programs? How much money is there altogether in the general fund? Any kind of money questions can come to your business office. Program components, you should talk to your superintendent or at your educational services offices. Those folks can talk about the kind of training that happens for the teachers, the materials that are available, any kind of workshops that folks are sent to, either parents or teachers. They can give you program components. Each district that has a GATE program also is expected to have a GATE advisory committee, and they can talk to you about past practices in your district. They can also talk to you about other options in terms of program content and delivery that might be considered. Some questions you might want to ask board members involve: how is the funding distributed to the GATE programs? What training is provided for your GATE teachers or for your parents of gifted students? What program compositions have been considered in your district? What have you been using, and what options are you considering? How are all gifted students identified? One of the problems out there that we commonly get is that gifted students are only identified by teacher referral. In fact, there are some students who aren't really obviously meeting the standard for gifted students who, when tested, test way off the charts. Finally, what's the status of your GATE plan? Is it being implemented? Is it being ignored? What exactly is the status? All of those things that are questions to ask your superintendent or your board members. By asking your board members, I assure you they're going to be talking to your superintendent and getting the answers to those questions. You want to talk to them about who gets identified and who gets served. What's the look and feel of the program? Do you have pull-out programs? Do you have students group in cluster groups? Exactly how are your programs structured locally? How much is the program costing the district? Who all is the program benefiting? It benefits gifted students, but it can also benefit all students and all teachers based on the training that's available. Finally, you might want to talk about how parents can get involved in facilitating the program. When you want to be an effective advocate, you come well informed about your subject and armed with information supporting your goals. We talked about places to get those. Be prepared. Be clear about what you want. Be well organized and focus your conversation on what it is you want. You want to be sincere and polite. You want to be timely. Trust me, it doesn't help to come in with the best arguments in the world if you've come in the night after the budget's been adopted to have that conversation. You want to be able to talk to board members in time for them to make budget decisions or policy decisions, not after the fact. That just annoys everyone. You want to be respectful of other people's points of view. If your board member or your superintendent is telling you that some other program is simply a higher priority, you want to be respectful of that. That's their opinion, but you also want to be able to point out why you believe a different approach is important. Be knowledgeable about the power hierarchy. Your principal works for your superintendent. Your superintendent works for your board. So don't put any of those folks in a position of having to go against their bosses. Likewise, don't put them in a position of having to make a commitment, live up to a commitment that they can't without the support of the folks above them. Be sensitive to other people's reactions. If people are talking to you, if their first reaction is, oh, those gifted kids want stuff again, start to be talking to them about how this is good for all kids, how these teaching strategies can be good for all kids, how it's helpful to have the gifted kids engaged in the classroom so that the teacher doesn't have to spend extra time on those students because they're acting out. Be politically aware. If you've got board members who are up for election and getting a lot of push one direction, you may want to not put them in a position that's too difficult for them to back away from. Be resourceful about places that you can meet board members, information you can get to them, and other folks that you can get on your side. And finally, don't ever forget to evaluate after a meeting what you could have done differently, what needs to still happen, and who you can get to follow up on that conversation. Sometimes if you've met with a board member who's talked about how important it is in their life that athletics be kept, maybe you want to get somebody, maybe your coach, to talk about how important it is that the gifted kids are served during the day so that they can participate in those teams. Think about who your other allies are. Again, there are a lot of up-to-date resource materials from the California Gifted site. You can also feel free to contact me at School Innovations and Advocacy. We have a lot of materials here, particularly on what's happening at the state level with budget, with legislation, and those kinds of issues. We're happy to do that anytime.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Teri, for that. I hope some of the parents were able to at least kind of figure out a starting point of where they'd like to approach their school board members. I did want to point out a few resources that UCI Extension also offers before we open up for questions and answers. The first of which is our free online gifted and talented education community. By registering for this free community, you have access to recordings not only of this webinar and associated articles for this webinar, but also previous webinar series that we've hosted in the past. It's very simple to become a member. All you have to do is sign up with our community website at that first link, create an account, and again, it's completely free. And then after logging into your account, clicking on that second link that you see and typing in the password gate_access. Again, you're going to receive these slides tomorrow if you registered through our extension website, so you'll be able to look at these slides at your leisure. And actually, didn't quite work, but this is actually a screenshot of our GATE community. Let me see if I can log in really quick. Oh, I guess not. Here are also a few other websites that many of you may be familiar with. The National Association for Gifted Children has a section on their website with lots of great information for parents of the gifted. And Hoagie's Gifted Education page is also another wonderful resource for anyone interested in learning more about gifted programming and online discussion groups for parents of the gifted. Okay, as I said, we want to leave the rest of the time tonight for Q&A. I know many of the parents out there may have some questions for either Teri or myself, and we invite you to submit those questions via the chat feature on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. So you can send them either to myself, A. Angelmo, or directly to Teri Burns. And we'll give you guys a few minutes to submit your questions. Actually, Teri, I have a question for you. What is the easiest way to figure out when the board meets?
The easiest way to figure out when the board will meet at least once a month, sometimes as often as weekly. They have to post that information at each of the school sites, and it's always posted on the district's website. If you have failing that, call the district office. They will know exactly when the board meets.
Great, thank you.
Again, you don't have to get on the agenda to just come up under public comments. If there is going to be a specific item for action, you can also come to the board meeting and be prepared to talk about that. If you want something specific on the agenda, that's where you need to talk to the superintendent or the board member to get it on the next board meeting.
Another question that we had, Teri, was what do you do if you don't receive any cooperation from your board and superintendent? What's the next step if they're completely resistant to what you're saying?
If they're completely resistant to what you're saying, that's where you need to start building a community of support. That's where you want to go out and start talking to the other parents who are engaged in this process. They will work together. You want to start educating your board members about the benefits of serving gifted students, and the benefits not to gifted students, but the benefits to the rest of the campus program. That's a good place to get some of the GATE articles, talk about how it turns out that a large number of dropouts are gifted students. If your board members are interested in reducing their dropout rates, then they need to be focusing on gifted kids. If your board members are interested in improving the classroom environment, they need to be training their teachers to do differentiated instruction so that they can deal with the gifted students and give them time to deal with the other students. Find ways that serving gifted kids also meets their needs, whatever those needs are.
Excellent. Thank you, Teri. Another question is it appropriate and effective for members of one district to advocate in other districts?
It's certainly appropriate and effective if they're coming with parents of that same district. It's very appropriate to go and support those parents. It's appropriate to come and do a presentation if perhaps parent in my district says, we don't have the best GATE program. I would like someone from a neighboring district. They have a great program. I would ask them to make a 3-minute presentation about what a quality GATE program looks like. That's perfectly appropriate. Board members, however, are going to be most impressed by the people from their own district who are talking.
Excellent. Another question from one of our participants: what kind of things could a teacher give out at a back-to-school night to encourage GATE advocacy?
You know, a great place, if a teacher wants to give out things, you can give out information about California Association for the Gifted. Let folks figure out how they can participate and be part of a group. But other things you can do are give out parent materials and talk about, we'd like to get the parents together, have a workshop night, and talk about the developmental processes of gifted students. Talk about parenting skills for gifted students. Start getting that group to come together occasionally and then urge them to advocate for gifted students. Again, give them something so that they come together and start feeling comfortable talking about the needs of their kids.
Wonderful. And actually, one of the participants has volunteered to send something that they put out for their parent night, their back-to-school night. So I will post that to the free GATE community for you all to have access to. Another question was, what were some of the specific questions that we can ask our school about its GATE program? And I know, Teri, you did cover that, so I just want to pull up that slide one more time. And there you go. So those are some of the questions that are the most effective to ask, I guess, not only at board meetings, but also if you approach your GATE coordinator. Would that be correct, Teri?
Absolutely. You can talk to your GATE coordinator if you still have one. A lot of districts don't have one anymore with the funding shortfall, so that's appropriate to talk to your Ed Services assistant superintendent or your superintendent. It's going to depend on the size of your district what that person is called. Smaller districts have a superintendent. Bigger districts have people with titles in between. But yes, if you'll ask them these questions, tell me what's been going on before, tell me what we're considering doing. We know there are cutbacks. Are we still prioritizing our gifted kids? What other things are we considering to meet their needs in this tight resource environment?
Great. Another question, Teri. I'm not sure how much of this one you can answer because it might be specific to the district, but one of the participants mentioned that their district does not provide resources or training for GATE teachers, yet they are able to accept money for GATE. So they want to know how they can accept the money for GATE but not train teachers to provide support for them.
Right now, because of funding flexibility, all districts in the state are getting their gifted and talented education money at the same rate they were getting it 2 years ago when the program went into flexibility. They will continue to get that money up until the year 12-13 and not have to do anything that dealt with the program. Prior to that, to get the money, they had to submit a GATE plan and demonstrate that they were using the GATE plan. The GATE plan does call for training. What some districts are doing now is scooping all of that gifted money and doing nothing there. Other districts are still using a portion of it specifically for gifted resources. That's why you want to ask the question, how is the GATE funding distributed? It still comes to your school district identified as the GATE money, but then goes into this bigger pot. So there's no excuse for your fiscal person to be able to say, well, we don't know how much money we get for GATE. They do. What they do with it is another story. And so that's the decision that's made in your budget workshops, in your board meeting, and your final budget. It is very fair to say what happened with that money and what's going on with those resources. It is very helpful to be able to talk about how differentiation training can be used across the district by all teachers, and that it's your expectation that if you have a GATE program, that your GATE teachers will have that kind of training.
Wonderful. Another question, Teri. One of the participants asked, what are some strategies to get districts to move away from one-size-fits-all services to an appropriate service model for all learners? And I guess I'm going to kind of put that question in context, meaning if you already have a GATE program set up at your school, do some of these strategies still work if you're trying to tweak how the program is being delivered?
Absolutely can help tweak how the program's being delivered. You know, just because we've always done it one way is not an excuse for continuing to always do it that way in the future. Take a look at the research. Take a look at the resources your district has. Maybe you have some new teachers coming into the program. Maybe you have some condensation of the program, whatever it is. This is a really good time to be thinking about how your program is structured. So don't hesitate to look at those things, present new options. Again, if you continue to have a GATE advisory committee meeting, you know, you can have one as the parents of gifted students, even if your district has walked away from GATE services altogether. Parents of gifted students probably have a sense of who you are. Go ahead and meet separately. If you come up with plans, if you come and talk at board meetings, people will want to engage you in the process. It's much easier to work with you than work against you.
Wonderful. Teri, for teachers and parents at schools that go to the principal and the GATE coordinators and the PTA meetings, if they're receiving resistance from the principal and the principal doesn't see the value necessarily in, for example, professional development for GATE, is that when these parents and teachers should go to the board to go kind of above the principal's head to the board?
Absolutely. That's exactly that chain of command I'm talking about. And if your principal isn't getting it and you've tried to educate him or her by showing them the research, showing them the detail, by having engaged parents who are pushing, take the next step. Go to your superintendent. What are we doing in this district to talk about gifted kids? What services are we providing? If you're not getting the support there, then go to your board members. By all means, engage. If you get an engaged board member, they're going to be pushing back on these folks, and that's where stuff starts to happen.
Great. Another question was from a participant who was interested in knowing if GATE programs, summer and other programs, are available on different organization websites. And actually, I can take that one. I know that the National Association the National Association for Gifted and Talented Students, nsgt.org, does have a list of GATE programs in California, especially for highly gifted students. CAG also does list some of the schools, and so does NAGC. So those are definitely the three probably resources I would go to: nsgt.org, NAGC, and CAG, C-A-G. Okay, we'll wait a couple more minutes for questions, Teri. Teri, here's an interesting question. Are there effective ways to eliminate the perception that GATE services and programs are elitist?
You know, that's always out there, and that's the most common thing we get is, that all gifted kids are white upper middle class and do all their work to the best of their ability. Simply isn't true. The data isn't there. The data doesn't show it. As many kids in juvenile hall are gifted as are in your classrooms. You can have gifted kids drop out all the time, not because they don't get the stuff, but because they're bored. And strangely enough, kids who speak another language, there are gifted kids who have other native languages than English. That is a real hard concept for a lot of folks. What you need to be doing is helping to educate people, bringing them through. One of the things that we've learned is pushing for universal testing for GATE, because it isn't just the kids who are high socioeconomic status. You can have gifted kids who haven't read the great books, who haven't traveled to Europe, all of those things, just simply because of their status. Show those folks, do that test, and your administrators will wind up identifying kids they never expected. That's the kind of way to hit them over the head with the idea that not all kids are the same. Another really useful tool is to find those kids of color, kids of low socioeconomic status, and bring them to board meetings to show your board, to show your community that there are gifted kids who may not look like them. It is a real healthy thing to do. Again, I can't emphasize enough the usefulness of taking advantage of your 2 minutes of public comment and saying, look, this kid who doesn't look like one of the star athletes, however, got this great score on a test, or did this fantastic science project, or a parent to come up and say, I just wanted to let you know what a great program your GATE program is for my kid. It really helped engage him or her in school again. She had completely lost interest until she came to this GATE class. Any of those kind of things takes 1 minute to say. It's that personal story. It puts a face on it. When you do that, then the next time funding for GATE comes up as a budget item, simply dollars and cents, your board members will go, oh, I remember GATE. Remember that kid? Those are the stories that stick out in their mind.
No, that's a great suggestion, Teri. I actually wanted to know if you would take a minute or two to explain a little bit more what School Innovations and Advocacy does and what sort of resources it can provide to parents.
Sure. School Innovations and Advocacy, we are an advocacy firm that works on behalf of the California Association for the Gifted. We work very specifically with the California Legislature and the Department of Education in trying to change the laws and the regulations and get funding for gifted programs. We're working very hard to be sure that at the end of categorical flexibility, unique funding does come back for gifted students. We're trying to work with CAG to get the data that's necessary to prove to the legislature that this group of students does need specific services, that they can get ignored in the process just because, as you say, people think gifted kids will do just fine. In fact, the data shows that that's not the case, and we're making that case before the legislature.
Wonderful. You guys are doing great things up there.
We also make available on the CAG website a list of legislation that is particularly dealing with gifted education. This year, when the budget is all the talk all the time, there isn't much that's out there, but in other years when there is a lot of legislation impacting gifted programs, all of that data is available on the CAG website.
Teri, I know we have a number of people joining us tonight from California, but we also have a lot of people nationally kind of logging in from all over the country, and also some international participants. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about the effectiveness, I guess the impact of registering with a local association. I know in California we have CAG. What does that membership do? How does it make an impact?
Well, the membership makes an impact in a variety of ways. First, on the local level, it gives you local experts to deal with and local support groups. We talked a little bit before about if you're going to go to speak before your board, maybe you're not real comfortable about it. Maybe you want to have someone come from the regional group and give you a little backup support on the importance of gifted programs and what's happening in your area. On a statewide level, the GATE program, California Association for the Gifted, and I know the other states as well, do training programs for both parents and teachers. We have conferences. In California, we have a summer series that trains teachers. So putting those resources together is hugely important. It's stuff that you couldn't do in your local community, but by having a statewide organization, you can have someone like me advocating on behalf of gifted kids at the legislature and doing those kind of trainings that are important on a more global level.
Excellent. Teri, I haven't seen any questions. I don't know if you've received any, but I just wanted to take a minute and thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know you have a very busy schedule, very hectic schedule, and we really appreciated you volunteering your time tonight to give us a little bit more information about what we can all do to help GATE programming, not only in California, but all over the country. So again, thank you so much.
Well, thanks for asking me, and thanks to all of you who've been listening in and for going out and making the case before your board. Again, you don't even have to be there asking for something. Just talk about gifted kids at your board meeting. Make sure people know there really are gifted children in their community and they deserve services.
Okay, everyone, if there's no more questions, we're going to wrap up a few minutes early tonight. We hope that you enjoyed our webinar presentation. I hope you found some value in what Teri had to say. This webinar will be posted, as I said, not only in our free online community, but also on the portal page where you logged in tonight. And again, you'll receive an email with instructions, and also on our open courseware website, which is listed there. A number of our other webinars are also listed at that website, so if you have a few spare minutes and you want to click around, please feel free to do so. Again, thank you so much for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you at our next free webinar. Teri, have a wonderful night, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks to all.